Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Concordia University's ForSpace. Welcome to Concordia's open house also, and thank you for joining us for today's event. Masters versus PhD, the decision that shapes your future. We'd like to begin by acknowledging that Concordia University is located in unceded Indigenous lands in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. We respect the continued connections with the past, the present, and the future in our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples in the Montreal community. And here at ForSpace, we work with our university community to help mobilize knowledge. We co-create daily activities that examine research questions and projects, things happening all across the university. And we're running today's event as a live stream, both to YouTube and a Zoom meeting. So we welcome any comments or questions you may have there via the chat, and we'll do our best to read those out a little bit later during the Q&A. And same for those of you joining us here in the space. If you have any comments or questions later on, just raise your hand and we'll run a microphone over to you so that everyone can hear. Okay, with that, it's very much my pleasure to hand the microphone over to one of our graduate student ambassadors in computer science, also at the Gina Cody School of Engineering and Computer Science, Nadine El-Mufti. Nadine, it's great to have you.
Thank you so much, Douglas. Hi, everyone, and welcome. It's so nice to see you guys. And thank you to those who are joining us in person at ForSpace and to those who are joining us online. I'd like to first start by thanking ForSpace for hosting us and the School of Graduate Studies for organizing this amazing event. To start things off, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Nadine El-Mufti, and I'm a master's student in the computer science thesis research-based program. I'm also a researcher at Mila. I study how we can use AI to detect pathologies from speech. And I'm really excited to be moderating the session today on Masters versus PhD, the decision that shapes your future. It's actually a question I'm currently navigating myself. So I think today's discussion is really going to, shed light on some things we all would like to learn more about so we can take the best next steps for ourselves. So to get things started, I'd love it if everyone at the table could give a brief introduction and tell us what you do and what program you're currently in.
All right. I am Hannah Jacob. I am a PhD student here at Concordia in the Art Education Department. And my research focuses on scientific illustration, specifically how illustrators are handling AI in their process of visualizing scientific information.
Hi, my name is Ling Lu. I did my master here at Concordia in applied linguistics, and I'm now in my first year PhD in education. And I also have a special focus on applied linguistics, which is basically language learning and teaching.
Hi, my name is Alana Rivera Matos. I'm a PhD student. I'm in my first year in the program of business administration with the focus in marketing. I just finished my master's as well here at Concordia, focusing on marketing as well. And for my master's, I study the available market resources, how they can impact consumers. And for my PhD, I think I will go in the same route. But let's see, I'm still in my first year.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ismail, and I have been doing my post-secondary education here at Concordia University, where I did my bachelor's of engineering in aerospace. And then right after that, I got a direct entry into PhD at Concordia, where I'm working on computer engineering with special focus on quantum computing. So my work right now, just a slight background, also I'm in my second year of PhD. So I've already finished 1 year. Basically giving a description of my work in PhD, I am working on how can we efficiently map hard problems, mathematical, physics, or scientific problems onto quantum computers to gain that advantage that all of us are seeking for. So great to be here.
Thank you guys for the amazing introductions. I think we have a very different backgrounds that are also complementary. So this discussion is definitely going to be very engaging. So let's get right into it. I want to start at the very beginning, that moment when the idea of grad school first crossed your mind. What first sparked it for you? Was it curiosity, someone's encouragement, or maybe just a feeling that you weren't really quite done learning yet? The floor is open. Yes, of course.
So mine is a long story. I have been an innovator at heart since what, like age of 11, 12, at the first moment getting my hands on the computers. And since starting my bachelor's and coming to Canada, I've always wanted to do research. I've always wanted to contribute to that research science. I mean, it's the circle that you're adding extra knowledge to it. You're just increasing a dent in that knowledge circle of humanity. So yeah, curiosity plays a big part. Being curious, I think, in whatever field you are, is going to guide you into what you want and how to go. Apart from that, I would say also my undergrad years were very motivational. So basically engaging with professors a lot, talking to them, basically looking into the work that they're doing, or sometimes even having professors where they go off tangent during the courses and they talk about their research work. I think that kind of opens up your mind into what's out there. So basically, I would say that somehow, some sort, I've had it figured out even before joining university that I wanted to do a PhD. And that's kind of what was my end goal, to have that formal education of research, of basically having contributions to the scientific community. So yeah, I assume that's how it all got started, and that's where I'm here right now.
Wow, that's so amazing. So you went from a bachelor straight into a PhD.
Yep.
Very cool, very cool.
Yeah, so in my case was a little bit different. I did a undergrad, and my undergrad in Brazil, I'm from Brazil, was focused a lot in the industry, and I was focused on getting a job. And then I worked in the industry for about 7 to 8 years. And at some point that stopped making sense. Like I didn't want to go further in the career. And I always was interested in teaching, actually. Research was not the main focus. And then I started to see opportunities, how I can change my career around. And I became really interested in going to grad studies. No one said anything. I just kind of figured it out along the way. I started to see options. And the master's was really important for me to understand what research means and what it means to be a professor along the way. So I figured it out, I think, as I started the master's. Actually, I was just trying. It seemed to fit. Canada seemed like a great place, and Concordia as well. And then, yeah, it led me to the PhD. I'm also kind of surprised along the way. But yeah, I think it's okay also to figure it out as you go. And I feel like my background in the industry really helped me with my research. So I see things in a different perspective. So I know some people like you, they know from the beginning, and that's great. But figuring out along the way, I think, is also a pathway, and it's also a possible one.
Absolutely. I think many people can relate to that, myself included. Yeah.
Okay, so a bit background about me. I did my undergrad in China, and I also did a master in China. Then I came to Concordia to do another master, and now I'm doing my PhD. So I think I'm one of those person who actually never considered going to the job market after undergrad. So I knew that I want to do a graduate study. And I think part of the reason why I chose this path was because I think I enjoy doing something challenging. So I remember there were people telling me like they might only accept 2 out of 10 students to the grad school. And I thought, okay, then I'll be that too, to students. So I think it's really nice to challenge yourself and go a step forward to the graduate study. And the reason why I chose to do my PhD was mainly because I really enjoyed my master study here. I could have just stopped after my master, but I thought it was such a nice experience studying applied linguistics. And then I just moved forward and to the PhD study. So it's also like what Alana was saying. It's you're figuring out what you really want as you're in this process. So yeah, I'm also the reason why I did my PhD was because it's something I gradually figured out as I do my master here. Okay.
I was also similar to Alana in a way where I went into industry after undergrad. And I actually studied a very different topic in my undergrad from my current one, except for we did a sort of capstone. I started to realize where I wanted my research to go. And I studied environmental studies. And then in my capstone, I started doing scientific illustrations and combining art as a tool for environmental education. And then I worked as an environmental educator, and through teaching field work, kind of workshops about scientific illustration, field drawing, I realized I needed to go in that direction. And that's when I started applying for more art-based kind of course-based programs for masters. So each step of my academic journey has been very different. So undergrad was liberal arts, and then for my master's it was very kind of course based, but we also did a thesis, but it was very technical. And then my PhD has been very little coursework, and it's really just delving into research. And each step has again been a step along the way where I wouldn't have known I was going to make that step 5 years prior. So having that flexibility to make the steps as you go and not necessarily worrying so much about where you're going to be in the next 5 years, I think was important for me, and just trusting the process.
I can relate to what Alana and Hannah said. So in my case, after my bachelor's was in software engineering. And you learn so many different tools and technologies that you can apply in any industry you want, really. So I had so many different routes I could take. So during my last year, what I was doing was I was applying to as many jobs as possible to see what doors would open, but things weren't going well because, the job market, it's not always guaranteed. So I had to think of a plan B. I always wanted to pursue graduate studies, but not directly after the bachelor. I wanted to go to industry, get some experience first, but that didn't work. So anyways, I started applying for master's scholarships. And once I heard back from one of them, I was really happy. And I said, this could be a great path to take. No need to wait for life to happen the way I want it to work. Sometimes, life steers you in better directions. So that's what I did. I applied to the computer science thesis program, and I've been very happy ever since. It's really helped me refine what I really like working on, which is AI for medical purposes. And it's unlocked, lots of opportunities to meet people from diverse backgrounds like you guys and other researchers working on similar stuff. And yeah, I think stepping out of your comfort zone is where the magic and the growth happens.
Just to also to say some
Yeah.
Another experience that I've had, and expanding on Alana's word, teaching increases your curiosity a lot.
Yes.
I did 2 years of teaching assistantship here at Concordia during my undergrad. So basically teaching up to 10 courses, and that required me to do a lot of my individual research on the side about that course topic specifically. And then as you're doing that, you discover a lot of stuff. So I could say that try to teach, and even if that involves teaching your siblings, your friends, and whoever it is, but pick a topic and challenge yourself, and that could probably guide you somehow if there is an interest to be sparked there.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. This is actually a great study hack when you try to explain a concept to someone and try to also talk to people from completely different backgrounds, even like younger people, you know, children. The more exposure you give yourself, the better. Yes. So, okay. So once we all made peace with the idea of grad school, the next question hits. Okay, but what kind of program, what kind of degree do I want? So let's talk about this fork in the road. How did you guys decide whether a master's or a PhD was the right move? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'll go first. So for me, I think based on my own program, Applied Linguistics, there are actually a lot of people just stop at the masters. Especially if you want to, it really depends on what you want to do in the future. If you want to be a language teacher, like a second language teacher, teaching English or French, and I would say a master's degree is enough. And I think a lot of people in my field, then their job, their future job, then had for themselves is to just be a teacher in the middle school or high school. And I think that it's perfect for them to just stop at masters. And for me, I had that thought. I thought about teaching language, but I want to do it at university level, and that's why I wanted to do a PhD. And I think also because I like research, and when you go to PhD, you will have a lot of chance to go deeper into the theories of language learning, and you learn, read papers, and you do research with your peers, and you learn from each other. So I would say if you want to be more practical and teach in the middle school, high school, or primary school, it's perfect fine to stop at master's degree or even undergrad degree. I think a lot of people, if they do it well, they can also teach after then do their undergrad. And if you're really into research and you want to teach at the university level, I would say a PhD would be the choice. But the point is that you really need to know what you want to do in the future and what kind of person you imagine yourself to be in the next 5 years. Yeah.
I would agree with that. I also, after I finished my master's, I did a year of freelance with the skills that I had developed, and it went really well. I developed relationships with clients. I was doing scientific illustrations with meaningful organizations that I was excited about. However, I didn't love it. Like, I want to continue to do that, but on the back burner. And I really did see my passion for research start to come through. And that was when I started coming up with these ideas. Like, I would be late at night, have an idea for a dissertation. And so I would apply for different PhDs. And when I was applying for those PhDs, really looking at interdisciplinary programs that matched my niche, where I could see my research going forward. And I think that's something important if you are thinking about doing a program, just seeing where you would fit in with the faculty in that department, and also with the research and labs, institutes in the university where you could see your research going forward.
Yeah, for me, it was really important to do the master's, and I was seeing in a academic career, so maybe the jump for the PhD would have made sense, but I didn't understand the academic world yet. So I feel the master's gives you the opportunity to understand where you're landing, again, what research means, what it means to be a professor, and for me, was really important, especially being away from an academic institution for so long. Focusing on the industry job is quite different. It gives you experience. I think that it's important, but it's different. So doing the master's, my choice was actually understanding and see if I enjoy it, because on paper, it seemed fun, but how is the practical way of actually doing the research and actually, yeah, teaching? So the master step was ideal for that. And once I understood, I felt like I was prepared to engage to a PhD. Now I feel way more mature. As a young researcher, still has I have a lot to learn, but I feel like I'm more ready for a PhD because I did a master's before. So it was a really important step for me.
So I never got the chance to taste masters to do it, but in my opinion, it's really a matter of, I mean, it's really a matter of what you want and where you're at. So if you think about it, and if you just think about the duration of masters compared to PhD, right? A master's usually takes 2 years, a PhD takes 4 to 5 years, sometimes to 6 years, depending on how you're progressing, right? So PhD is a bigger commitment. And if you don't know what you want to do, but you're interested in grad studies, then master's is a perfect opportunity to get a taste of it. I had a talk with one of my mentors. He was a professor at the computer science and software engineering department here at Concordia. And I asked him whether I should go for the direct, because I also got a master's offer at another university, so whether I should go for a direct PhD here or whether I should go for a master's. And he said, what do you want to do? I said, I'm going to do a PhD regardless. So he told me that master's, you could see it as getting a taste of it, similar to an appetizer.
A stepping stone.
A stepping stone,
Exactly.
right? To figure it out, you get into research. The workload is not that high compared to a PhD. You're still doing research. You're still trying to do something interesting and contribute to the scientific community. But if you don't know what you want to do, you go for master's. And if you spark the interest to continue what you're doing and you're enjoying it, and also a lot of times you might take a break and just go to the industry, do something else. You might even pivot, because I did a big jump from my undergrad to my grad, where I went from aerospace engineering to quantum computing. There was 2 different fields. There was still that engineering aspect, but at the end of the day, I kind of took advantage of my undergrad to do what's supposed to be done in masters, where I was testing the grounds on what's actually my interest. Aerospace engineering sounded complicated. It was like multidisciplinary. Everything was, there was a taste of everything: electrical, computer, software, so all of those stuff. But then at the end of the day, you kind of reflect back on what actually interests you within the academic life you have had. And I was thinking about it. I said computations is what I really love, computations and algorithms, although I did aerospace engineering, which is a different field, right? So I said, let's see what's the emerging field in that sense, and I will aim for that. And given that I wanted to do a PhD and I got a direct entry offer here, I think it was a no-brainer to just stay here and do my PhD, and it has been a blast since then.
Yeah, your stories are very inspiring, and I think, you know, you don't really need a master's to test the waters. You can definitely do that at the undergrad level, which is actually what I did. I applied to a research internship and got to work with an amazing professor who is now my co-supervisor, actually. And so, you know, like, you have so many different opportunities to see if, to test things before fully committing. But again, with a PhD, you really have to decide if, for example, you'd like to live in this specific country for the next 5 years, and so on. So there's lots of personal stuff to consider as well. So beyond, so usually people, when they hear PhD, they ask you, like, do you want to become a professor? But I think there are other use cases to a PhD degree. Can you guys share a couple, and maybe let us know if you'd like to become professors one day?
I would say it might depend on which program you're in. I think for my program, it's actually more common to be professors than be in the industry. But of course, you can still be in the industry and working for companies like Duolingo, I guess, who develops language learning programs. But for me, I think, yeah, speaking of my own program, education or applied linguistics, it's actually, if you want to be a professor, I think it's it's the way to go. If you want to be the industry, I think actually being a PhD is kind of overqualified for some industry works in my field. So it really depends on which program you're in, and I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, for the business area, I know people who also pivot and went to the industry. You can get, I think, even governmental positions because you're really the specialist on that. The program does focus mostly on you becoming a professor when you're doing a PhD. You're becoming a researcher. I think that's a better way to put it. But
An
because
expert in your field.
exactly.
basically.
But because of that, like you can also collaborate with the industry a lot. So like do consulting jobs. So you can work in between. I think there are a lot of options. We do, again, because we have to focus on becoming a professor, we do focus on this, but I see opportunities in the business area if you want to get more of an industry role, working consulting and yeah, different positions. For now, the goal is to become a professor, but again, a PhD is a long time. We have well, 4 or 5 years ahead. So
Yes, yes. I'd just like to add something. So regarding the business aspect, you can always take your research idea and transform it into a product start a startup. If entrepreneurship is something you're after, it's actually something I've been into lately, because I feel like it's really nice to take the work you've been working on for X years and, and just letting society benefit from it. I think that's very rewarding.
Interestingly enough, I wanted to actually start the talk with the whole startup ecosystem and the startups basically shooting off from grad studies, from PhD, masters even. Yeah, I mean, being a professor is definitely kind of like the straight line out of PhD. Then, like especially in my field, in engineering, a lot of times you go for a postdoc position, and then you go for a professor position, and then you have your own research group, research lab. There's always interesting things going on, especially in the engineering and the whole STEM ecosystem. Apart from that, in engineering, we have this concept of R&D, research and development, and where these industrial companies, big engineering firms, and even small engineering firms, they hire only PhD or master's students. And the reason being is that they have had the research training, and a lot of their work involves this research and development process. So in a way, sometimes it's beneficial, depending on the program. Actually, it depends on the program is the actual answer. So depending on the program, like for example, in my program, in quantum computing, IBM is the leading enterprise and firm in that area. And if you want to work for IBM, they only hire from masters and PhD. They rarely hire from bachelors unless you have done some research during your bachelor's. And I think a lot of grad students in engineering and in the technical and the STEM world, they kind of enjoy that whole R&D environment, because it's kind of continuing what you're doing but in the industry. And a lot of them also stay and become professors, and they have their own research labs, which is also another interesting thing. And then you have the whole startup thing, the startup ecosystem. Montreal, even Concordia has a lot of programs for that. Montreal,
Exactly.
yeah.
You have incubators that help give you advice and guide you. And you also have accelerators that fund your ideas.
No, exactly. Yeah, spot on, to be honest. Here they have grants, they have non-dilutive grants, actually. So they kind of award you some certain amount of funds, and that doesn't mean that they own some of your equity. in the startup that you're developing. They also have a lot of these incubators. So we have District 3, which is affiliated with Concordia.
V1 Studio as well.
V1 Studio, you have the whole Innovation Fund grant.
Yeah, exactly.
So they kind of encourage a lot of these grad students to bring their idea into the industry, to bring their breakthroughs into the industry. So I presume that given that you're doing research and if you see commercial value in it or potential commercial value in it, that's one of the routes. And actually a lot of, I've also learned, I mean, Nadine, even similar to what you said, I have that interest of learning about research and then eventually having, applying it, having my own firm where we do these interesting research routes and pathways, and we kind of bring it to the industry. So it's always nice to continue what you're doing it if you're passionate and you're enjoying it. And I think masters and PhD, both of them actually kind of give you that room and that space to figure it out. And like, okay, am I enjoying this? Am I not enjoying this? Am I passionate about this? Right. I mean, I remember during the first 8 months of my PhD, I was just trying to know if I'm actually passionate, I'm enjoying it. But then you go for your first research work and research paper, and then you see the results, you experience the journey, and you say, okay, I like this, which was the case for me, fortunately.
Yes.
Or I don't like this, and then you pivot. So, I mean, pivoting is always an idea in startup, and I think it's the same thing in PhD and masters.
This actually takes me to my next question. Is your experience with your PhD so far what you expected, or did it turn out to be different?
Great question. PhD has been very eye-opening. To be honest, beginning, I expected to be a bit more, I mean, again, I didn't have any prior experience in research, right? I only did my undergrad, and undergrad is just courses. You finish your course, you do your homework, you have a project, you have an exam. That's it, right?
Someone to tell you what to do, basically, and a recipe to follow.
So the big culture shock for me was deadlines. In undergrad, you have a deadline, you know that's on your calendar, and you have to reach that deadline. And if you don't reach that deadline, then you don't get your grade. End of the story, right? Yeah. But in PhD, you really require that discipline, that ongoing motivation, and it's not easy. It actually requires you having a lot of internal thoughts, having a lot of actually mentorship, talking to your supervisor, talking to your peers.
A good support system.
A good support system, your family, right? And basically, yeah, transitioning from that whole undergrad to PhD, and especially during the first 8 months where you're doing your courses and you're also doing research on the side, trying to figure out the moment you start reading research papers and you're like, do I actually understand what's going on here? And I'm just trying to figure it out.
Good enough? Am I good enough?
Yeah, so you always have that question in mind. But I feel like it's an eye-opening experience. I have had a lot of actually PhD peers who say the same thing, that during their first year it was the most challenging, and then after that it clears up. And most challenging, not in a bad way, actually, in a very constructive way, because it's kind of putting you on the spot in the position that, hey, as a PhD student, you have courses, but you also have research, and you're supposed to come up with new methodologies, and your supervisor is not always going to guide you through that. So that's from the research point of view.
Sit along the line. For me, the big difference in expectations was that a PhD feels more like a job to me. There are a lot of duties in the PhD You have more teaching assistantships, research assistantships, and other opportunities come your way where you're getting paid, and it does feel like you have more of this job like schedule. And you have these different projects in big chunks that you have to work on, and there is less coursework. So for me, that the expectation was kind of that it would be more like the academic world I was used to before that. And the PhD has felt more like a kind of preamble to what I assume my career will continue to look like. So that's kind of what I would say was a bit of not a culture shock, but a difference. And in terms of challenges, I would say that getting used to some you are on your own in a different way, and uh developing relationships with your different faculty members and other people in your cohort is much more important during your PhD because of the length of study that we've discussed and how you have this independence.
And they start to view you as a peer as well. So the dynamic completely changes.
I would agree that PhD is more like a job than being a student. And I think what I expected before doing PhD was that there will be a lot of freedom, like a scary amount of freedom you have to use. And I think it's still true. So I would say like after doing my PhD, I figured out that you really have to do a lot of work on managing your time. Otherwise, you'll just get lost, or you're spending the whole month doing nothing or doing a lot of things that you don't know what they are. So yeah, I would say first, PhD has a lot of freedom and you need to know how to use them. And also, I think it's something you cannot really have an expectation on what you're going to do in this year, in next year, because things are changing all the time. It's also like what we were saying, you're figuring out what you want as you're doing this PhD or master. So I think maybe lower your expectation of what you're going to do in the next 5 years, and you just try to make small goals out of what you're going to do in the next month. And then you're just going to do this gradually and you'll get to where you want to be.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest surprise was actually doing the master's, because once you work in the industry for a while, you kind of at the rhythm of work, you have the freedom. And I used to work with project management. So the whole thing regarding management time, I was used to that. But coming back to become a student was really a different dynamic that I wasn't experiencing in a long time. So taking courses, it was an adjustment for me, like being graded again, and you need to follow the schedule once you were already. I don't have a schedule to follow, like I'm doing my own thing. So that adjustment for me was the toughest one. And now coming back to coursework in the PhD is an adjustment. And I think the biggest adjustment is also managing everything, because you're doing research, you're teaching. So I think the management is still a big thing for me in this first year to get adjust. And I didn't think I would need to adjust to that, but I do. But doing the coursework was actually the toughest for me. Once I reached the thesis and the focus also was only on research, and I was able to manage everything, I felt more comfortable. And then yeah, you just need, and the project management background really helped. Like if you know how to manage things, you probably will do fine your research.
Yeah, I think it's always better to finish your courses first and then dive into your research, because this also helps you build a stronger foundation. What about work-life balance? Having time for, outings, seeing your friends, just de-stressing, because it's not easy doing a graduate degree. So it's always very important to balance things out. Could you maybe share what works for you or what you've...
Sure, and it is, I think it is the biggest challenge. We always want to do everything. What works for me, I always trying to get a day off.
Mhm.
So we like to work on the weekends as well. It's not healthy. So I like to choose a day. So maybe it will be Saturday, it will be Sunday. And no matter what, even if I have stuff to do, I will block that day. And the day will be for fun, just fun.
And
Because
maybe some chores as well.
yeah, cleaning the house, that's also important. But I think it's important to take a step back, also to recover self mentally, so you can look at things with a fresh eye. So you become more productive if you're also taking a break. So this is my number one rule. And when I don't respect that rule, things start to get messy. So
Yes.
for me, that works. I establish a day, the day is for fun, and no matter what, I will catch up the work later on.
I love the idea of having a day off and making it mandatory on yourself. I actually recently started that, and
And how's that going so far?
great.
Are you committing to that day off?
Yeah, I mean, except this week, but it was an exception, and that was because I had to go for a workshop, and that required me to travel. So that Sunday was basically taken away from me, but it's okay. Yeah, definitely having a day off, just to kind of relax, rest your brain, rest your mind, reflect on your week, even plan for next week, have a journal or something, a planner. I usually what I do is that in the mornings on that day off, I just spend 15 minutes on just a task list for next week. And on top of that, to have that work-life balance. To be honest, my mentality is PhD is my life right now. So if I am going to be doing it, might as well enjoy it. And even that involves reading papers, even if that involves reading boring papers, even if that involves being in meetings that are not relevant to what you're doing. And I think one of the other important things that you really need to have that work-life balance is sleep.
Yes.
Having enough sleep during that day or during between those 2 days and the night in the middle, I think it kind of refreshes you for the next day, and you are ready to kind of structure that freedom that you have because of PhD into something productive and useful because of having a fresh mind, because having enough rest, right? And a lot of times, I mean, and this is from experience of even being in undergrad and working full time while taking full time course load. Planning and having a schedule that you respect is really important, and that's why I really love that one day off idea. That should be mandatory, I think, on all PhD students.
Yes, but many people tell you we don't really have the luxury to take a day off, for example, because we work. And how would you answer?
So, funnily enough, I also work right now. I tend to have almost 30 hours to 35 hours of workload.
Wow.
On top of my PhD.
What kind of work? Is it related to your research?
Not directly related to my research. One of them is an internship, and then the other one is that I'm working with a bunch of co-founders on a startup. So I know that does sound a lot of time, but honestly speaking, I think if you really plan ahead and if you really stick to your schedule
and have a routine,
try to make having that routine a goal.
Yes.
Not just saying like I'm gonna have this routine, I'm gonna be doing this. Having it as a goal, like I want to see me doing this consistently for the next month. And that should be my goal. I know first month is going to be rough. There are going to be days that you just don't feel like it and you have to press on yourself.
Exactly.
So yeah, I assume that, yeah, there is a limit on work-life balance and how much time do you really dedicate to work and how much time you really dedicate to socializing life and going out. But at the end of the day, make the schedule, respect your schedule. I think is the best approach. Just it puts you in a disciplined environment.
Just a brief point, because I understand people not being able to take a day off. If you cannot do that, take the afternoon off and the other afternoon off, and then it becomes a day. But I think a break is really important because at some point you're not going to be productive anymore. You're going to be scrolling off your phone, so it
And
will
burnt
be
out.
and it will be basically the same thing. You're not going to be working anymore. You need to be you to work. So if it's not a day, take an afternoon and then the other afternoon, and then you can take a break. I just want to really highlight that because as graduates students, we can really burn ourselves out, and that's really dangerous.
Yeah, I totally agree that we should take at least one day off. And I'm so happy we're all like realize this as or as PhD or master students. Because as I said, we actually have a lot of freedom as PhD students. So you can easily put a lot of stuff on your plate. You can have overwhelming amount of work to do because you think you're so free and you just got a lot of TA or RA and other kind of job. So it's really important to take maybe the Saturday off and do something else and be completely disconnect with your research or the emails and all the school stuff. And for me, I think, for example, personally, I would say I took too many jobs at some point, and I got like a lot of RAs and TAs, and I felt that you get a lot of money and you got a lot of experience, but you don't feel healthy being in that position. So actually, after this, I'm going to hike, and I have my hiking boots out.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. I actually have always been okay about work-life balance. I think I just maybe a little lazy for a PhD student typically. But if I could give any advice, I would just say that I'm trying to think. I think it's maybe just in my nature. So I don't know if I can give any really great advice. I would just say know your limits and really just evaluate the different experiences that are being offered to you and if you're kind of overwhelmed, make a priority and drop those. I don't tend to drop things, but you don't feel afraid to drop things that are overwhelming you, and just make sure your research and the things that you care about are the most important priority.
Exactly. I think everyone has to identify the top priorities and then go from there. And regarding work, you can always find an internship that can complement your thesis. And this is actually what I'm currently doing. Yes, I sometimes have to work on the weekend, but I try to fix this issue I have, but it's been really rewarding having everything be related to each other. So I don't have to like disconnect and work on something completely not related. With around 10 minutes left, I think it's a good time to start taking questions from the audience.
If anyone in the audience has any questions, just raise your hand. I'll bring a microphone around. And those of you on Zoom, have a couple questions we've been answering in the chat, but now would be a good time too if you have any other questions. Do you have any questions? Yeah, we've got one here in the space.
Hi, yeah, I'm curious to hear a bit more about the side of teaching in the context of being a sort of like interdisciplinary person. I kind of missed the intros, but I think I heard like a fair amount of interest around teaching. Myself, I have my focus would be more like breadth and grad school being more about depth, I would have concerns, like a little bit of imposter syndrome about feeling well enough about teaching a subject to other folks. So if anybody has sort of like interdisciplinary shifts in education.
I have had to step into roles where I felt like my background maybe didn't prepare me. However, I find that you won't find yourself in many roles or teaching positions where you can't rise to that occasion and figure it out. Um, for example, with TA positions, you end up doing a lot of behind the scene work and working with a professor, but in a lot of the courses here at Concordia, you're doing a lot of assisting and you're doing less teaching primarily. There are classes where you will be like a lab tutorial lead and you are the one person. My partner is on the Loyola campus and he is running a lab with 24 students in chemistry and he hasn't taken chemistry in years, but it really he's in the place he is for a reason. And if you get into your program and you're assigned a teaching position, you will be equipped to make it work and you'll surprise yourself. And especially if you have the interest in teaching, I think being a good teacher and being a person who can comprehend subjects, and if you're in grad school, you will surprise yourself. At least that's what I found.
This actually happened to me recently, in winter, where I was assigned as a teaching assistant for one of the courses that I never took. And I mean, within STEM, usually the transition seems to be very smooth. We see people from different background in STEM easily adapt to teaching a course that they have never taken before. And again, expanding on what Hannah said, you would be surprised of yourself at how quickly you could get adapted. Yeah, maybe the first 1 or 2 tutorials wouldn't be that great, but eventually you'll get a hang of that. And I think expanding from there, it's not that much of a bumpy ride as you might think if you haven't started it. So yeah, I mean, I was in aerospace, and the course that was assigned to me was completely different. It was about software testing, and I never had taken that course. And funnily enough, actually, the professor asked me to do something that she never also did in that course. So eventually I had to literally take a week off and just put my ultimate focus on preparing that part of the puzzle. Yeah. So again, you'd be surprised of yourself.
Any other questions?
Question here? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Eric. First of all, I just want to say thank you for sharing. It's been insightful and helpful at the same time. So I'm planning to do a PhD program in humanities. And when I was going through the online course requirements, I saw that I think you need 3 team members from the university. So if anyone can help me on how to get through that, I will appreciate.
Are you discussing about supervisors? You could just nod if you're maybe like supervision in the university. So for at least for most humanities courses, if you're looking at grad programs, you need your you get your supervisors once you are in the program. But if that's not the case, reaching out to looking at the faculty in the department you're interested in and comparing their research interests with your own is really important, and finding professors or faculty members that have similar research areas to you, and then reaching out to them and saying, I am an applicant interested in this program, whether it's course-based, it's probably research-based if you need supervision, and reaching out to them, telling them that you would be interested in them being this mentor that they're requiring, but also just getting clarity about what that position means. And so if you don't really know what those faculty members are supposed to do for you during your academic career, maybe reaching out to the directors and the programs to ask more questions about what that role looks like so that you can know what to go to them for. You can know if you're going to them for that supervision role or if it's more of just this like reference mentorship, like a lower kind of, or not as deep of as a relationship as a direct supervisor. So that's what I would recommend. I don't know if that answered your question somewhat. I would just mainly just reaching out to the program you're interested in and make sure that you're talking to the right people. And if you meet the wrong person, you can write in that email, just like, if you could direct me to the person that could help me with this. That's always the best step if you're confused by some of the application process.
Just to kind of break down the whole reaching out process, the best way it worked for me was pick the faculty and the professor you're interested in and look into their research work. So usually you will find their research work online or on Google Scholar. Spend a week, maybe just back and forth with online summarizers and just understand what their research work is and if it actually aligns with what you're doing. The moment you have that click, you could always write an email easily to reach out to that professor that you want to work with, and feel free to mention their research and tell them, even to criticize it if you would like that.
Yeah, they love feedback.
They love feedback, and that's how you could distinguish yourself from other applicants, because you should also think that it's also kind of competitive and there is competition, and a lot of times professors do not have enough positions open just for that that research position, that PhD position. Okay.
And by open position, you mean like funding. And in that case, you know, you can consider co-supervision or external funding by applying to a scholarship. And
exactly, yeah. I mean, yeah, funding seems to be a bottleneck.
Yeah, exactly.
In PhD, masters, I feel like it's less or so. I mean, there's also course-based. That's what a lot of people do, but then you have to pay the tuition for that. But yeah, as Nadine suggested, supervision is great. Apart from that, applying for scholarships, and sometimes you might not even have the background that might get you through. So I would suggest trying and keep trying, and something is gonna probably click up. And even if you don't have the background, there's always time to complement it with other stuff, add additional stuff. I didn't have the background for my PhD; it was just engineering. But aerospace, I mean, going to quantum computing, but I still try to complement it with my side projects that I did. Yep.
So this wraps up our discussion. Thank you so much, guys. It was a very rich discussion. I learned a lot, and I hope you guys will leave with more answers than questions. But of course, if you have more questions, you can find us at the EV building. We'll be on the second floor until 4 p.m. And you can always message us by sending a message on Unibuddy, and we'll be happy to help you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Nadine. Thank you all for graduate ambassadors. We love you. Thanks for coming in for this. It was really great to hear your perspective on your journey, your choices, and just seeing what's happening behind the scenes. We don't get enough of that here. It's great to have you. And also everyone joining us online, thank you for your questions. I hope we've been able to provide some answers there via the chat. Those of you here in the space, your questions are fantastic. We're going to close up. But remember that this remains available on our YouTube channel. You can revisit it. You can search in the transcript actually in the YouTube video for specific terms if you're looking for answers related to questions that I know you touched on a lot of things today, and we'll be sharing this also later. Have a great afternoon. Okay.